That's going to be our one and only concert, usually during the Christmas time from the end of um, end of November all the way through the last day of Christmas, before Christmas break. We have performances every weekend doing something somewhere. And so that's our busiest time, is during the Christmas time. And then in the spring, it calms down and we prepare for assessment, and then our spring concert and graduation. So, and that's how our year goes. And if we go on our spring trip, that's usually in either late April or early May. But other than that, that's all I do. Well, I conduct at church, and I also sing in a jazz choir, a jazz band. I'm the lead singer in the jazz band. That's fun, and so that gets me out of my classical realm and into singing jazz. So I love doing that. So, but that's it. Any questions for me?
Yeah, actually, thank you so much for talking about yourself first off. We do have a couple questions like pre-written for you to answer. Also, just kind of easy ones to start off. Is there a specific piece that has been your favorite to conduct in your career?
Anything, anything by Moses Hogan, I love. I wanted to do my dissertation on and researching all of his music and cataloging all of his music, but somebody got to it before I did, and so I was like, oh man, I want to do that so bad. But yeah, I love Moses Hogan. I love anything that he has. Like I said, I did my teaching teaching project for my dissertation. I mean, for my doctorate on the authentic interpretation of the Negro spiritual, and so that's my heart. That's what I grew up on, and so that's what I do. But and so yeah, that's what I love.
I guess that kind of leads into another question, which you might have already answered, but what's your favorite style of music to conduct?
Well, I like, more than conducting, I like the teaching aspect of the music. I love the classroom time. The conducting out in front of the public is icing on the cake. I like the cake part. I like being in class. I like teaching it to the kids. I like them giving me feedback. I like for them to answer questions and to ask questions about why I do stuff and when do I do it and how do I do it, because that way they're learning. They're not just barking at print. They're really learning how to interpret a piece of music. And when they ask me a question, well, why do you do it that way? And I can, because of this, that, and the other. And the transition from doing Bach, Mozart, Brahms, and then Moses Hogan, and letting them see the difference between all of those pieces of music, and asking them, how are they different? Why are they different? And that's the whole point of developing that music, is so you can perform it. But I love that classroom time, but more than anything else.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question. That kind of also leads into another question that I had. So at a time like this where we see so many issues with racism and police brutality and things like that, what kind of, I guess, tips do you have for conductors who want to conduct pieces or have their choir sing pieces that are kind of topical or about the issues that we're going through?
I deliberately choose music for that purpose. And I know I've been in concerts with Ms. Dr. Billingham, who I know she does the same thing. I've seen her performances and I've seen why she does do the music that she does. But every year in the fall, my kids we do two things. We couldn't do it this year, but in the past, we've always done these two things. We always go and perform for the candlelight vigil for the women's shelter, women's abuse, and that gives me an opportunity to talk about it in my classroom. And I find a piece of music that's appropriate two pieces of music that's appropriate for that setting, and we do those pieces. And then also we sing for the suicide prevention walk that we have at Sharando every year. We sing for that. And again, in my classroom, we talk about it. And I tell the kids, there's a place where you can go, because you never know. The person right beside you could be, thinking about suicide, and you never know. Or this young lady who is sitting beside you on the other side could be having probably difficulty at home, being beat up or being abused by somebody, and you never know. And so that it gives me reason to deliberately talk about those topics. And we, anything and everything is open game for me. And if it's a teaching moment, I take it. I don't care what it's about. We stop. Well, let's talk about this. We were doing This Little Babe, so a few days old. And one kid stopped me and raised her hand. And she went, "Dr. Jennings, why are we singing about a pig?" And it never dawned on me from the movie Babe, the movie about the pig. And the kids were all like, okay, she does not get this. And so we stopped. And I talked to her. We talked about what that piece of music is from, where it came from, why it's there, what is it talking about. And afterwards, I said, I grew up in the church. That's what this piece is really about. It's about the baby Jesus. And so she went, "Oh, well, maybe you should go to church and check out." I said, "Well, maybe you should." So I wasn't proselytizing, but I gave her an option that she could take advantage of. And so, yeah, all those things are open and discussable in my classroom.
Thank you. That was really a great answer. So another question that we already had prepared was, what would be your top 3 tips for someone who does not have any experience conducting?
A one pattern is your friend. If you ever get lost, one, until you find yourself. One is your friend. And after that, you can find yourself and you get back into your pattern and you're there. And so that's the biggest thing that I learned as a conductor, because I was conducting one time, my music flew off my podium, and I'm standing there going, okay, now what do I do? So until I figured out where I was, I went one, and I found myself, and I was back into it, and we went on. But yeah, just remember that. And that conducting patterns are good, but that's just the beginning of choral music. If you have to be able to get out of that pattern and emote with your hands and express the music with your hands. And once you get into that, once you know the music well enough that you can conduct with emotion through your hands, that's another thing. It's just standing up and beating the pattern. That's a metronome can do that. So you have to feel your music, and you have to emote using your hands, and cutoffs and stuff like that, and entrances and cueing, all those things. Just conducting the pattern won't give you that. So after you learn the pattern, then you have to learn how to conduct.
I think that was really great advice. I know I'm taking conducting currently, and I think that will really help me with the pieces that we're doing. So I think I have 2 more prepared questions, and then I'll open the floor to other people to ask. But the next one is, at what point in your life as a musician did you know you wanted to conduct?
That's a good question. I have 3 older brothers. My oldest brother is 6 years older than I. He was in high school. I was in middle school. His choir had a concert that I went to for the first time, and I saw the conductor doing something. I had no idea what it was, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. After I saw that guy in front of me conducting that choir, having that music pass by you, and I went, yes, that's what I want to do. And I think I was like in the 7th, 8th grade when I saw that, and I fell in love. And I had been singing and playing the saxophone, flute, and clarinet since 3rd grade. I was in the band, and back then you could be in a band with an instrument in the 3rd grade. And so I played bari sax. I sat on books and I set the saxophone on the floor, and I couldn't reach the bottom notes because my arms weren't long enough yet, but I was doing it. And so yeah, and then when I saw my brother's conductor conducting the choir, I knew right away that that's what I wanted to do. And so I've been looking towards that ever since then. And so I knew right away that's what I wanted to do.
Again, thank you so much for answering that question. Okay, so one last prepared one. So being in this virtual world that we're in, what kind of teaching tools, teaching practices are you using when you are teaching your students?
I'm using a lot of whiteboards. I'm using my computers a lot. I'm using websites that the kids can go to and get information for. I'm having them do a lot of research on their music, on composers, on time periods, and having them write one-page paper on one of the Christmas hit pieces that we're doing. We're doing Sleigh Ride with the band at Christmas time, and so I said, okay, I want you to, one-page paper that's annotated on Sleigh Ride. Bring it to me tomorrow. And so, our next class, literally right now, I see half my class on Monday. Let's say my concert choir. I'll see half of them on Monday. I'll see the other half of them on Tuesday. And that's it for the whole week. But we can only sing for half an hour. So when they're not with me, I have them doing other stuff at home. And then I have some kids that are virtual all the time, and I have to have stuff for them to do also. And so they Google Classroom us during class time. And so I'll get to see them. And then I just have them mute and they sing along with us. And then if I have a test for them to do, I either send them the test and they do it at home, or some of them, if they have to repeat the test, then I have them come in because there's no classes on Wednesday. I have class Monday, Tuesday, virtual on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then they will come in on Wednesday and take the test, a written test for me or something like that. And I spread them out. And I have like 2 kids come at a time. So one will be in my classroom and one will be in the library or vice versa. And that way they're not together in one room. And my room is all spread out now. I can only have 18 kids in my huge choir room, only 18 kids at a time. And so it's all working. I thought that I wasn't going to like it. I thought I was going to hate it. But after we got into it and started it, it's turning out okay. The only thing the kids don't like, we got those choral choir masks. Those things are huge. I mean, they are humongous. And the kids don't like them because you look like a duck when you put them on. You really do. They're so far out in front of you. And there's a lot of space in there, but they're so difficult to breathe through because the material is so thick. And so, yeah, the kids are hating that. So, but yeah, we're getting through it.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of an adjustment, I think, for everybody. But like you said, we're getting through it, and we're trying our best to make the most out of the situation. I want to open the floor now up to other people in this meeting to ask questions if they have them. So if you would like to unmute or send it in the chat, feel free to.
I have a question. So for
Yes, ma'am.
my high school, it was like around October time was a very like sluggish time since it was like end of quarter 1. How do you energize your choir during this time, especially with COVID as well?
Well, before COVID, our 3 area high schools in Frederick County, we deliberately do in October a giving concert is what it's called. And I have two large ensembles. Well, each school has two large ensembles, and we prepare by each one of the ensembles will prepare 3 songs, and then so each school will have 6 songs to do, and we invite people to come to the performance. But when they come, they have to bring a non-perishable food item. And so we'll get a whole lot more people because all 3 of the high schools are doing this performance together. And so we'll get a whole lot more food items. And then we give the food to CCAP. It's the area food bank. And so we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We can talk to our kids about being homeless and being hungry and why we do it and stuff like that in class. And then we have the performance. And usually the person who is in charge or of the food bank would come and talk about the food bank at the performance and stuff like that, and and see how we can help more. So that's what we do in October, so that the kids will have something to work for and to work towards.
Thank you again for answering that question. Would anybody else like to ask a question at this moment? Okay, so there's a question in the chat from Jalen, and Jalen says, what is your favorite spiritual to teach and why?
Oh man, there's so many of those. I liked, ooh, man. Oh, like I said, I like anything by Moses Hogan, any of his stuff. But there's one, Terry, what was that piece that you were asking me about? The one that I sent you that had 3 different composers. What was the title of that piece? I can't remember it. But yeah, we did that piece in New York at Carnegie Hall. What was it?
It's Ride On King Jesus.
Yeah, Ride On King Jesus. There are so many different versions of it. And any one of them is a great piece to do. But yeah, I love doing Ride On King Jesus because it's just a dynamic piece to do, and it's not very long, but it takes a lot of control. It takes a lot of interpretation to get it right.
I'll have to put it on my list of songs to conduct. I guess I have a question kind of along the same lines. So I've sung a few pieces by Moses Hogan in high school, but are there any other like Black conductors, Black composers that you would suggest either like looking into or researching for as a student conductor?
Early Black conductors, Black composers. What's her name? She taught at Virginia State University. What was her name? Can't remember her name now. She wrote some wonderful pieces. And Dawson, anything by him is great. If you want to learn how to conduct, William Dawson music is for Negro spirituals. It's awesome. That's where I started. And I had a question. Do I teach gospel? Oh yes, we have a lot of gospel pieces that I use a lot in choir, and there's a huge difference between gospel and spirituals, and they are Negro spirituals. There's white spirituals and there are Negro spirituals, and the two aren't the same. And I had to fight to use that word Negro when I was doing my teaching project. They didn't want me to put that word in there. I went, what do you mean not put it in there? Are you crazy? There's 2 different things. There are white spirituals and there are Negro spirituals, and they're not the same. And so they finally let me use that in my paper because I was not going to take it out. And so, yeah, there are differences in them. And yes, I do sing gospel at school, you know, and again, I don't proselytize. We talk about the different interpretations and different styles, you know, Bach and Mozart and Beethoven, and they all wrote sacred music. So why can't I use gospel? Undine Moore. Yep, that's what it was. Undine Moore. She was at Virginia State. Love her stuff. She has some great pieces of music, honestly. She's, as a matter of fact, she was, when my brother was in college at Virginia State in undergraduate school, she was there with him. So I was not old enough to experience that, but I wish I had her.
Again, thank you so much for answering that question. Okay, so it looks like there's another question in the chat from Grayson, and Grayson says, when you teach gospel music and spirituals, do you ever explain the meaning of the pieces to your students?
Yes, you have to interpret it, so you have to explain to them or ask them questions. Tell me, what are you hearing the difference in these pieces? How are they different from one another? How is this piece different rhythmically or emotionally than the ones that are Negro spiritual? What's the added part to this that makes it a gospel piece instead of a Negro spiritual? And so, yeah, we talk about those differences. And the same thing when, you know, let's do this Bach piece now. How is this similar to the Negro spiritual that we just did? How is the emotion in this piece different or the same? How can we interpret them differently? Or what part of them can we interpret it the same way and have a different meaning in it? So yeah, all of that stuff is there for the picking. You just have to pull it out and ask questions. I ask a lot of questions all the time when I'm doing a piece of music, or they will ask me. I love it when the kids ask me questions about something, a topic and stuff that we can expand on, or say, well, let's try this to see if it works. And if it does work, we'll keep it. If it doesn't work, then we'll ask, why did it not work? And that way, the kids are learning interpretive style and technique, and they're putting it together for themselves and not just regurgitating what the conductor says just because. You know, I had a conductor. He was an awesome musician. I mean, he was the best musician I've heard and seen and been under in my life. But he didn't tell you why he was doing anything. He just said, do it. I'm not going, but why? I want to know why. Why are you doing it this way? But you never had an opportunity to ask those questions. So when I got to a point where I could be teaching, that's why I always give the kids an opportunity to ask questions, or me ask them questions on why I'm doing it, and talk about it. That way the kids are learning more than just, you know, do it this way because I said so.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? I have another one, but if other people have more, I don't want to keep asking mine. Okay, well, so I was wondering if there were any specific like sources or websites or like organizations that you like to get music from or try to find new music from.
I steal music from other people all the time. I go to concerts and I go, oh, I like that piece, and I'll highlight it, circle it, bring it home, put it in my catalog, in my library, and then if I remember it, I'll go, oh yeah, I remember, I got that piece in my library. Then I'll go get it and pull it out, and we'll do it. Conductors do that all the time. We steal from each other all the time. Why reinvent the wheel? You know, if you see something that works, try and see if it'll work for you and do it. You know, I do that all the time. And it's a way that we can collaborate with each other and not even have to do anything, you know, to do it. Because I know I've gone to concerts with Dr. Billingham. I've seen her performances, and I come straight home and go, okay, I want to find that piece of music, and I put it in my library just so that I'll be able to use it when I want to use it.
You're very sweet to say that. Thank you. Hi.
Hey, that's truth.
Hey, we steal from each other, right? We learned that many years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
You help each
exactly.
other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Looks like there is another question in the chat from Case, and Case asks, does your approach to teaching a piece change depending on the genre?
Oh, totally. Totally. Yes, you can't do a piece of music you have to do it in the style in which it was written. And each one in each genre has its own character. And you have to understand that character to do justice to the piece of music. When I was in undergraduate school, my junior year, I hated music history. I'm like, why do we don't need this stuff? What's the whole point of music history? Once I started conducting, I understood exactly why you need music history, because you cannot do a piece of music from the time period in the 1800s as you would in the 20th century piece. They're totally different styles and techniques and interpretation, and you have to know what they are. You have to know the composer. You have to know why the person wrote that piece of music and in what period that it was written in. And so all of that's very important. And literally, I had no idea until I started conducting. And once you start conducting and you figure, well, why is it not working for me? And then it's probably because you're interpreting it wrong, or you don't know the history of the piece to do it justice.
All right, it looks like there is another question from Jalen in the chat, and Jalen asks, do you believe teaching from the oral tradition helps the foundation of music scholars?
Yes, to a certain extent, because there are people who are great singers and have a great ear, but don't understand the theory behind what they're hearing. And so again, that you could lose a lot by not knowing the theory behind what's happening, because if you have a chord that's inverted, and you're wondering why this chord isn't stacking well, it could be just because you are the note that you are trying to pronounce, trying to put out there more than anybody else, is not the right part of the chord. And so that's why you have to understand how the chord progression is working. What part of the chord do you want to be strong, and how do you go about stacking that chord? And again, if you don't understand what you're hearing, theoretically, you could have difficulty when you're conducting that piece. It's not just all the being a vocalist and trying to just sing. I tell my kids all the time, I want you to be a smart musician, not a dumb singer. And we get a lot of kids that will try and go off to college and major in music and are dumb singers and didn't get anything out of their high school experience. And they go in there and they don't know not even how to count, let alone what a chord is and how to stack a chord. So yeah, I try and teach both aspects of that, and then when they leave my classroom, they're not just dumb singers. I call it the dumb singer syndrome.
All right, I think we got another question in the chat from Sarah. And Sarah asks, do you teach your students theory as you move along with songs, or do you dedicate days at the beginning of the year?
Both. Let's say I'm teaching, and a deceptive chord comes up, at the end of a phrase. And I tell them, this is a deceptive chord because it goes anywhere but 5 or 1. So the next time you hear this, they will know that, oh, that's not a 5-1 cadence. That is a deceptive cadence. And so I try and teach as I go along. When the situation fits itself, I try and do both. And especially with sight reading, we sight read every day in my classroom. You know, we sight read, we start with just one part, and then we sight read 2 parts, and then we sight read 3 and 4 parts. I've never sight read past 4 parts yet, but we might give it a shot at some point. But yeah, Mike, and like I said today, we were doing rhythmic dictation today, and by the end of that half an hour, my kids were taking rhythmic dictation up to quarter notes, quarter rests, eighth notes, eighth rests, and their next class we're going to be doing 16th notes with rest in any of those four note values, so that they're going to be able to do that dictation also. And then when I introduce a piece of music, we take it out. We look through it, and I show them how to prepare a piece of music. When you first get a piece, what do? You look at the title, you look at the composer, you look at the voicing, you look at the meter, you look at the time signature, and you walk through the piece to see if there's any repeats or anything like that. And now my kids do that automatically now when they pick up a piece of music. And then I go, okay, let's rhythmically read through the first 2 or 3 pages, you know, and then we'll go back. Okay, now look at these intervals. Let's sing these intervals, and then we go back slowly. Now let's sing through these 2 or 3 pages just on a neutral vowel without the text, because I'm dyslexic. I can't do all of that at one time. So I pick up what's strong for me. Okay, let's do it on a neutral vowel, and then we'll sing through it. And sometimes, I'll have them all do their own part. And if it gets difficult, I go, okay, sopranos and basses, you do the soprano part. Tenors and altos, you sing the alto part. Let's do it. And then we switch around until everybody's gotten comfortable at doing those 2 pages, and we put it together. So I try and teach the theory aspect of it as we go along. And then they can apply it better that way. And especially kids who've never been in an ensemble before, who you just get in there and trying to put it all together, hook it all together. That way they can apply it and remember it a little bit easier.
All right, we have another question from Joe Walsh in the chat. And Joe says, how do you prepare a score for your first rehearsal?
In relationship to me or in relationship to the kids? That's my question. I need to know which aspect are you. Okay, well, for me, I take a piece of music and like I said, I do the same thing that I just told you about when I open up a piece of music. And then I highlight parts for me that I think that are difficult for me, that I might say, okay, if it's hard for me to get this rhythm, it's going to be hard for kids to get this rhythm too. So I highlight that. I highlight all my key changes, and I highlight all of my. I use literally a yellow or a lime green highlighter for different stuff. When I'm on a page that I'm looking for, I look for all the dynamic markings that they have that I might want to use or might not want to use, depending on my interpretation of the piece. And then I'll go and I'll listen to other ensembles doing that piece and seeing if I like their interpretation or not. And if I do, I'll steal from that. And I try and make sure that I have a strong knowledge of what I'm looking at before I introduce it to my kids. That way I can hopefully get away from the music. But as in the last 20 years, we do so much music before Christmas and stuff like that. I bet you for one Christmas season, all of my ensembles, we're doing 40, 50 pieces of music. Each one of my ensembles will do 10 pieces, and I have 5 ensembles. And so me having to memorize all that music ain't gonna happen. So I pick and choose what I think that I can memorize and what I can't. And that way I can put my music away and emote. So, I have had ensembles that were so good, they didn't need me on stage. I go and start them, and I'll put my hands down and just listen and go, y'all, you don't need me anymore. You go for it. And let them sing. And I've done that before. I'm like, oh, y'all sing to me. I'll get back to you when I can. Okay. So I've done that before. I have just let them go and let them sing. So that's how I prepare a piece of music.
I'm checking the chat to see if other people have more questions, but I have another one, so I think I will ask. Um, so in choir, when you have new students, so like say freshmen coming into high school who maybe don't know as much about music theory or reading music, that kind of thing, how do you cater to them and make sure that they are learning and growing and getting up to the same standard that upperclassmen are?
Well, the upperclassmen do a lot of that for me. They are very strong at asking questions, and they will stop and ask questions. And I've said this 100 times. I love it when they do that, and it opens up the kids to ask questions, other kids to ask questions. And I tell them all the time, I give you permission to make a mistake. I give you that right to make a mistake. I make 1,000 of them a day. You have my permission to make a mistake. I give myself permission to make a mistake. And when I make a mistake, I tell them, oh, I screwed that up. Let's do it again for me. And when they get that feeling of when they feel comfortable in that environment, they will open up and be willing to perform for you and not afraid to make a mistake. Because I tell them all the time, I make 1,000 mistakes a day, and that's okay. And that's why it's called school. If you knew it all, you wouldn't have to go to school. And I tell them that all the time too. And I also tell them, if any of your teachers think that they know it all, run. Okay? Because nobody knows everything about anything. And I'll tell them that I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll know it tomorrow. I will research that and I will have it for you tomorrow. Okay? And it's okay that you don't know everything. That's why it's called school. So that's how I help my freshmen. I let my kids be examples for them. And I also, at the beginning of school, we do take a lot of time in learning rhythms and counting and being able to vocalize well. And when I did my undergraduate and graduate work too, even through my doctorate, I took private voice lessons because I wanted to be able to give that back to my students. I wanted to be able to know what the process is, how to do it, because there are a lot of teachers who are wonderful piano people and get up to conduct, and they look at a choir and go, okay, this needs to be bigger, scream it out. I'm like going, really? They're vocalists, they're not piano people. Okay, so that's an instrument too, and you have to be careful with that instrument. You have to know the technique behind that instrument like you would a piano. And so that's why I took voice lessons all the way through my doctorate, so that I would have the stuff that I needed to stand in front of a choir and go, this is how you get that high C, by doing this, that, or the other. And what kind of vowel do you use to get those top notes and stuff like that. So yes, that's what we do.
Thank you. I did see that there is a question from someone in the chat, Dr. Wilkerson. So the question is, I noticed in your bio that you are a member of Music Educators Professional Service Organization. How did they or have they influenced, benefited, or maybe even propelled your career? Why do you choose to be a member of these specific organizations? And are there other professional service organizations you think students should explore?
Sure, anything and everything that you can do. I used to conduct the women's barbershop choir here in this area. You want to talk about learning how to listen to chords and the chord structure and how they and how they work. conduct a women's barbershop choir or a men's barbershop choir for that matter, but I did the women's barbershop choir. And they have no piano in the room. They do everything a cappella, and you have to teach them the music a cappella and stacking chords and how those chords work. All of that stuff is really important. And being in VMEA and VCDA, yeah, they were a big help for me. I used to go to the conferences all the time. My choir has sung at the conference several times. And that I would tell you that it's a good thing that for any musician to be in a organization that brings them together to again to steal information from. I go to them a lot because they have reading sessions where I can go and find music for all of my ensembles. I do that a lot. And all of them usually have some kind of reading sessions where you can go and find music. I get my music from right now from the music source. I do a lot of that in the spring because they will give me a 25% discount on all of my music. And so I go there, but if I want it like the next day, in 2 days, I get it from Pepper because you can get music from Pepper, within 2 or 3 days, music's in your room. And but I take a lot of time choosing my music and trying to figure out what I want to do. And that's the hardest part, is finding quality music. I try not to put anything in my library that's just fluff and junk. Because when I leave, I don't want somebody to go, "Oh, really? This is what they were doing in this school? What eek?" So I try and do quality music and put quality music in the library. So when I leave and someone goes in, they're not purging and getting rid of stuff because it's not quality. So yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Are there any other questions from anyone, either just unmuting or in the chat? Or
So this is Dr. B, and I've got to bow out because I apologize. I have another meeting at 4 o'clock. But I would ask you this question. When you have interns in your classroom, could you talk about the 3 things that you hope that they are prepared to do when it's their time to learn to be a teacher and cross the desk? And thank you so much again, friend, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Student teachers, the thing, you need to have confidence in yourself more than anything else. You need to understand what you want as a conductor and be able to get the kids to produce that. I try to tell my student teachers all the time, don't try and please me. You have to be when you're in front of the kids, you are the conductor, you are the teacher, you are the person that's in charge of the classroom. And I tell them all the time, see, where I am in Virginia, my kids in my classrooms, they're never going to be rude or to act nasty in any way, shape, or form. It does not happen in my classroom. It just won't happen. And so I tell them that so that they can feel comfortable then at that point to get what they want out of the kids. And my kids, like I said, my kids are going to stretch them too. They're going to ask questions. They're going to ask, why are you doing that? What's this in your conducting pattern? What is this for? What does this do? And you have to be able to explain to the kids why you're doing what you're doing. And so the biggest thing I tell them all the time, don't try and please me. I'm going to critique you, yes, but you have to do what you think is right, not what you think I think is right. Because if you're doing what you think is right, and if it isn't right, I'll tell you. And if it is right, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So be strong in yourself, conduct what you think is right. And I ask questions all the time when my student teacher is there, why are you doing that? Tell me what this is for. Okay, explain this to the kids. And I will ask a question and I go, well, when you were in your voice lesson, how did you go about doing this phrase? And they'll go, well, I did this. Well, tell the kids that. And again, you see, I need you to be yourself and understand that you are the teacher. And I'm just there sitting in the back trying to help you at the end. And I had a professor, a conducting professor. She was at JMU, and she would come up once a week and sit in the back of my classroom, and I would conduct for that hour and a half. And then after that, we would have another half an hour of sessions with her telling me all things I did well, all things that I did wrong. And that was the biggest help for me that I could get. That was just that, her critiquing me at the end. And so that's what I try and do with my student teachers.
Thank you for that. I definitely am going to take that advice and try to use it. So I'm going to ask one more time if there are any questions, any more questions. And then if not, I think we can wrap it up. But I will wait a second.
Well, I hope I was a help in some way. Thank you guys for inviting me.
All right. Yeah, I think we're good then. But thank you so much for coming and speaking with us and giving us all of your knowledge and answering our questions. We really appreciate it. So thank you again.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Take care. Be safe.
Hey, are we having, we're still having exec at 5:30, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we can talk about how this went.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay, bye.
Bye.